Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show, where we explore the ideas, systems, and strategies that help businesses grow with less friction and greater freedom. I'm your host, Paul Guyon. Today, we're talking about one of the biggest surprises founders run into. Business grows, the team grows, revenue grows, and suddenly the very solution that was supposed to create freedom starts creating even more pressure. Nick Avaria lived through this firsthand. After building a multi-million dollar agency, hiring experienced leadership nearly pushed the business into collapse and less value. Today, we're unpacking what actually happened, why it happened, what founders often miss when they try to scale. Nick, thank you so much, brother. Thank you for coming to the show. I appreciate you.
Likewise, Paul. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you bet.
So,
So, yeah, take us back to that point. You had grown the business to the 3 million mark ish, and where were we at? How did that feel at that point?
yeah, leading up to this, it felt pretty good, right? Probably the first 200 or so per 200K per month or so. So 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 felt pretty good. But then when we started hitting that, it kind of got really shaky really fast. And I think this is because we were very good at delivering what we delivered, right?
Yeah.
And we had a pretty good formula in delivering client value. What we sold and what we promised in a sales call, we delivered on that. So we were rewarded with growth. We were rewarded with client retention. We were rewarded with all these things, and we were rewarded with size. And with size increases come new problems. So you're rewarded with problems. And the challenge that we
Yeah.
basically had is that at some point we started to it was me and my co-founder, and we needed to start hiring new people, new managers specifically, because we could not manage any more people on our own. And
Yeah. What was that like? How did that come to being? Did something break or what was going on there?
I don't know if it broke fully, but it was more like there was this moment where we realized that we couldn't step in further because we were already working like 40, anywhere between a 40 to 60 hour week, 40 on the low end. It was more like 50 to 60 and sometimes 60 plus.
Hmm.
So we just kind of looked at each other and said, look, we can't do this alone as the only managers in the business anymore. This is not going to work. And we started to see revenue slow. We started seeing more mistakes being made. And our people were also more stressed because of it, right? Because they frankly just weren't getting the support from us that they were used to getting at that point.
Yeah. What were the mistakes that were being made?
Yeah, I mean, it was very small things, just like things not being on time, or maybe like small mistakes not being caught because we quality assured every single thing that was going out the door, right? Rather than giving
Mm,
people the tools to do so. And
yeah.
so these small mistakes, like they're inert in the sense that like it doesn't fundamentally break down what we were delivering, but they build up in the client's mind. And over time, all you really have in these B2B relationships is trust, because they're trusting you to do a good job. And these small mistakes like start to eat away and or erode at that trust. And we knew that this was happening because some of our longstanding clients would just call us and say, hey, like, I feel like the work isn't of the standard that it used to be.
Yeah. And so what were those conversations like?
They were not fun, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely people coming in and saying basically how I took it is, look, the value equation's off, right? Like what you're charging us versus what we're getting. This value equation is not what it used to be. And they're being very gentle about it, but basically saying we need this to revert back to a previous state
Mm.
as fast as humanly possible. Right. And so that was really eye opening. We got a lot of forgiveness, especially from our long-standing clients. The newer clients were not as understanding. And this is where the growth slowed down, because it wasn't like we were slowing down growth on the sales and marketing side. We were closing as many deals as we were before. So it wasn't like, hey, we're slowing down because our lead source broke down or something like that. It was the fact that more clients were churning, especially the newer ones that we didn't have as much
Ah,
will with.
yeah.
And they were just walking out the door, not really giving us an explanation. This is why we kind of had this delay to action, is because they were like, yeah, we're just going a different direction. Whereas the older clients, they were the ones that were like, look, we still want to work with you more, but these things need to happen. And they named their list, right?
What was your staff? You did have some people on your team at that point. What were they saying and how were they feeling?
Generally, there was a lot of finger pointing internally that
Mm,
they weren't necessarily, and I took the finger pointing at that time as they don't know where it's coming from. So basically, I had an accounts team, right? They're the client interface versus a digital team versus a creative team in the background. Obviously,
yeah.
the digital team was pretty varied, but basically we had those three teams as the primary deliverers of the work and client interface. And so a lot of finger pointing happened, like accounts team pointing at the digital team, like, oh, or the creative team, and vice versa. And basically saying, oh, this handoff wasn't done well, and oh, the work isn't good, and oh, the brief wasn't good. That's why the work isn't good, and things like this. When to myself, what I really took this as was, of course, the brief isn't good. I used to review all the briefs. Of course, this thing isn't like to this thing because I was more involved in the process of quality assuring creative before it went to the client. So all of these things, these little tiny things that I no longer had time for, went by the wayside. And as they did, these mistakes started mounting because, in essence, it wasn't that I didn't have capable people. It's that they were using me as a crutch, and I had developed a habit for them to basically depend on it rather than being independent and being like them doing their best work that they could have done all along. Right. It's just sort of like it went missing. And in the absence of that, they were like, because it wasn't like we just said, hey, we're going to stop checking this work. See you later. It was a conversation of, hey, we don't have as much time. Is it okay if we kind of step back? And we didn't set processes as we did. So we didn't say, hey, if you finish a piece of creative, get your peer to check it, right? Get like an
Yeah.
internal like audit on it before it actually goes to the client. So we didn't basically insert a system behind us to make sure that these things weren't happening as we stopped involving ourselves day to day.
Yeah. And so at that point, you were growing, you were getting deals, you were pumping more through your team, and you used to approve everything, you used to quality control everything. What about your co-founder? What was he or she doing?
This was the only reason we got to that 2.2, 2.5 million. If it was only one of us, we wouldn't have even gotten there before this pain happened. So we were like basically
You
like
were
pretty
both with a
stretched
hero?
thin. Yeah, because at the end of the day, he was like doing a lot of the marketing side. I owned the sales side. Basically, he generated the leads. I closed the leads. I also had some help on the sales side as well. But basically, what I said this problem would have happened way sooner in
Mhm.
our journey is because me and him were both doing the same thing on the work side, right? So I don't even think that we would have gotten to 2.5 the way that we did without, if it was just one of us checking the work, it would have happened. This would have happened way sooner.
Yeah. And what was he worried at that point, or were you more
Not
worried?
not as much as I was, to be quite
Yeah.
frank. And that did lead to some friction for
Yeah.
sure, because I kind of saw one thing that I've always been pretty good at is determining the momentum of a organization. I used to do a ton of consulting. I used to do mergers and acquisitions, like on behalf of other people and things like that.
Mhm.
So I could generally tell when the momentum in a company was doing well based off the financials, based off talking to people and like all these things, and what it kind of takes to win, right? The agency was my business. In all these other businesses, I was an employee, right, or a consultant, but I did have the ability to kind of step back and look at the field and say, look, the momentum is no longer in our favor. We're still growing. It's just not that good. And I know that before this problem is fixed, we will definitely plateau, if not start going downwards. Right.
So
And
at what
sure
point
enough,
did
like if we
yeah.
fast forward, that's exactly what happened.
And so at what point did you step back and do that? And then what happened then?
Yeah. To be very frank, it was when I went on vacation. um, because the wife basically said, look, you haven't gone on vacation in years at this point. We need a break. You need to figure out 7 days to step away. And it was like, or an or else moment. So I was like, yeah,
Mm.
we're doing this. And although when I was on vacation, I will say that as she went to go get like some water or like some food or a drink, I would 100% be on my phone, checking email, checking Slack and stuff like that. Right. So it was a vacation in quotation marks.
And she knew what was going on. She knew you were doing that.
Oh,
What were
100%.
those conversations like? What did she
Well, I
think?
mean, like I had the great fortune of marrying somebody whose father was also an entrepreneur. So
Ah,
she
she
got
gets
it.
it.
But she was like my wife's a saint. So like she wasn't actually worried or she wasn't angry or like upset at me doing it. She was more so like upset that I had to do it, which is different,
Yeah.
right? So the angle wasn't like you're
Oh,
robbing me of quality time, although she could have, it was her right to feel that way. But like that's not where she went with it, like at all. It was more just, I really wish you could unplug and like you need to figure this out kind of thing. Right. So basically that
yeah.
more so the conversations. You need to figure this out. And I think that's really what prompted like the whole self-reflection of it while on vacation. So
Yeah. My wife challenges me. She goes, "You're doing all this, and they're asking all of this of you. Why aren't you charging more? Why are you doing it? Why doesn't someone else do that? What's your plan?" She she's a saint too, for those reasons and many more. So, okay, so you're on vacation now. You're doing some self reflection. What were you thinking?
yeah, to some degree, the thing is that, and look, I'll say this right now. I was very fortunate in being, after doing my university studies and whatever have you, I went into medium to large organizations. And I had the great fortune of acquiring at minimum 3 mentors and more in passing. And so I knew how a company should run in the sense
Mhm.
of what a fully professionalized company is, what it looks like even in a medium-sized enterprise. When an owner grows a leadership team and is now CEO, but the COO is the president and they're running the thing. I had seen what that was like. And also the benefit of consulting for a number of years in things like operational efficiency and
Yeah.
less so management, but just like how it pertained to management. And so I was like, look, the narrative that I had in my head was this before this. It was, we are too small for that stuff.
Mm.
And I think that it's because my state of mind got stuck somewhere between 500K a year and $1 million a year. Frankly, I was like, we're a scrappy startup. We don't need any of this stuff. We don't need
Yeah.
profit. And by the way, you're talking to somebody that I did M&A. Like I judge businesses on their ability to create scalable processes and what happens if the key managers go down. Is there key man risk and like all this stuff? Look, I was basically turning a blind eye to all of that stuff because I was like, it's not needed. The problem in retrospect was that there's an immutable law in business, which I talk about now all the time, which is you grow or shrink to the level of sophistication that you run your business at. And at the time, I just
I like
like,
that.
I got swept up in the whirlwind and I was like, we're just a scrappy startup. And we were at the point where I had to transition between being a founder to being a CEO. And my business partner had never held an executive title. And I couldn't very well expect him to be the catalyst of all of this.
Ah. So
So
you're on
really
vacation.
the self-reflection of all of this was like, what happens when we grow another 20% next year, 30% next year? How many hours am I going to have to work? And is that even reasonable? And already knowing that the momentum had already shifted against us, I'm like, are we just going to end up working more for less? Are we actually going to start shrinking while working more? And the answer seemed like more so inevitably, yeah, like this is exactly what's going to happen. And in fact, it'll happen even before we fix this, because any fix in business, once it takes hold, it takes like the hard work of the change and the thing that you need to do and figuring it all out. Like it's going to take a while and then you implement it and then the momentum starts to change. It doesn't change day one. Any change
Yeah.
at the beginning has a little dip to it. before you come out better. So I was like, look, we're already going to stall out. We're already going to get worse. And so that was basically the catalyst point for me to come back from that vacation and be like, look, we got to get this place up and running better. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Plan one, we need to hire two managers to take care of the work side so that I can create some room on my calendar to start doing process and start doing these things that we basically are operating without, because frankly, the entire business ran off of the operating system of my brain at the time. If I saw a moving part that was off, I would come and readjust it and put it back into sync, back into alignment. And it's not sustainable in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. So at that point, you had everything in your head. So you hired these new hires. What happened then?
Yeah. The long story short is that we hired the wrong people. And
Yeah.
A, we hired the wrong people. B, we did not give them the tools that they need to succeed in their management roles of these departments. So we actually didn't just hire managers, we hired department heads. Two things went fairly wrong in the process. And I'll tell you what it was in retrospect. Number one, very good managers that we did interview, because it's like, look, it's not like we didn't interview good managers. We did. They just pulled out of, it's like, oh, hey, I took another opportunity or whatever else have you. Don't know if that was real or not, but I suspect a lot of it was not. I think the good managers that we did interview, they realized by asking some questions, and look, we were pretty honest. My attitude in hiring is you got to tell people the truth of what they're getting themselves into, because they can either help or they can't. Or if you tell them, oh yeah, this is fine, and then they walk in and it's not fine, they're like, but I need that to succeed because I know how I work. Right. So I think that a lot of the people that we said, oh yeah, we don't have these things and blah, blah, we're in the middle of building them and whatever have you, I think those were the good managers. Right. And they were asking us about our methodology around leadership, et cetera, and they just quietly bowed out. And then we were left with what we were left with, and we basically just picked who we could based off who was left at the end of the process, right? And we actually did a couple rounds, to be frank with you. It wasn't like, oh, hey, the first 3 candidates that we interviewed took through the process, et cetera. It was more like 9 or so, but a lot of drop off. And I do fully believe that the good candidates dropped out because they were like, yeah, like this company's not in a place where I care to follow. Which
Did you know that at the time? Did you feel it?
Absolutely not. Like retrospect, like hindsight is 2020, right? And looking at it backwards, it's so obvious and simple that this is exactly what it was. So I tell people now all the time, right? Because like now I have 3 agencies and they all run autonomously without me. Maybe I'm spoiling the punchline here, but and I help other B2B and agency owners trying to get out of the day-to-day like I did. But in retrospect, and I hear this all the time. People are like, Nick, I've gone to hire like directors and managers and department heads, and there's nobody good out there. And I'm like, I'd rather give that tough love than hold back what my experience is. And I was like, look, like I've been here, I tell this story and I say, it's not that good managers and department heads, directors aren't applying to you. It's that they're not choosing you. It's mathematically impossible for you to collect 500 resumes and not have one good applicant at this level with experience, right? With years of experience in these kinds of roles. The question is, are they wanting to work for you after the process? And every time I talk to them, it's the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, there was a couple good candidates and they kind of bowed out. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I saw too. Right? Because the best people, you're not hiring them. They're choosing to work for you because the best people have options in all of this.
So how did this look so you've got managers, whatever quality they were, and they started working. What happened then? What happened to the business? What happened to revenue?
This is where things got frankly worse very quickly. So what happened at that point is that the finger pointing had already started. Putting these department heads in place made the finger pointing so much worse.
Yeah.
Right? Because for better or worse, they came in with, this all came out clear in the wash at the time, like no idea what was happening. Right? Again, proper systems were not in place. So when they came in, basically they said, look, this is the list of things that we are responsible for. If you do these things, it's not our fault. And so they created this internal departmental culture of it's not our fault. Check the boxes. If you check the boxes, it's not your fault. And as I know now, is that when you have a culture of checking the box or trying to prevent being at fault, you take your eye off of winning, right?
Yeah.
And the second you take your eye off of winning, it's like nothing good can come of it. This is where places become bureaucracies and they take forever to a decision to be made. And people are lobbying for their own point of view rather than lobbying for like, how do we make the client win? How do we make the organization win? And how do we win by extension of that, right?
When you take, what was that again? When you take your eye off of winning, what was the rest of it?
Oh, when you take your eye off of winning, places become bureaucracies real quick,
Yeah.
right?
But
Because
yeah,
like
that
everybody's
was a
now
great phrase in
lobbying
there.
for their own sub-department at the cost of other departments and or other functions within the business and or even maybe the client. And basically I call it, and I talk about this now all the time because these are the lessons learned through this process is, well, is somebody trying to optimize for themselves? Are they trying to optimize for their department or are they optimizing for the business? And optimizing for the business because the reason the business exists is to serve the client. By default, if they're serving the business, they are serving the client first, right? So there's three types of people.
Let's get back to the nuts and bolts though here. So you've got this culture that's imploding. What happened to revenue? What happened to the value of your company?
Went with it, for sure. Look, if you fast forward about 6 to 12 months, the business has basically lost $1 million in top line. Valuation wise, because obviously the profit went first in that decline, right? Valuation wise, we probably lost somewhere in the vicinity of, I don't know, probably $2 million in valuation. We were actually quite profitable before these problems began. And the only reason that we didn't have to fire people as we lost revenue was because they were quitting and because they were not happy, right? As you can kind of like surmise here.
Yeah.
So
wow.
That was like, and showing up to work for 6 to 12 months where I could see it happen in real time, right? Because like I looked at the P&Ls closely and I'm like, okay, cool. Lost like another 20 grand in cash, lost another 100K in valuation this month. Awesome. And because me and my founder were pretty protective of our staff, I'll be honest, like we stopped taking a salary home pretty quick, right? So like we were basically like paid zero to show up for at least 10 months.
What did your wife say about that?
Look, I'll be honest. I owned 8 houses at that point, like 8 detached houses. We were fine. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you otherwise, but it wasn't the most comfortable, but I was selling my investment properties that I had acquired while I was in corporate life. And that was financing everything at that point.
Yeah. And so your valuation was going down.
Oh, yeah. Like net worth was like going in one direction and it wasn't up. Right.
Yeah. And she couldn't have been happy about that. Plus
No,
you're working more too.
Yeah. I think she was more unhappy about the working more part. The other part, like, again, Saint believes in me, like implicitly. She was like, yeah, it's fine. You'll figure it out. And just kind of went about her business. So I think it's also because of the upbringing again, like her father was like his ended up being a success story. So she's like, hey, yeah, it's hard, but you'll figure it out. And she just kind of moved on, or at least she made it appear that way. So yeah, like taking up more and more time, and about halfway through she got pregnant. So with our first child. And so I was like, man, like the clock is like running on top of my head. I'm like, because I knew it. It's look, when this baby's born, like I'm not going to be able to work like this anymore. There's no way. Right. Like I fully knew that going in. And so I was like, about halfway through, I was like, we got to do something. Because like, otherwise, I need to probably start making some money here, like fresh money, not just selling assets. And number 2, like I need time back too, as a part of all of this. So
yeah. How was your health at that time? Was it, you're doing pretty good still, or?
No, like absolutely not. I probably weighed like a solid like 40 pounds more than I do today. At least. Going to the gym, like, what do you mean? I
Who has
woke
time
up
for that?
yeah, like I woke up, showered, did my stuff, and sat at my computer, ate breakfast and lunch on my computer, worked until 6, took a 2-hour break to have dinner with my wife. And then I was like from 9 p.m. till like 1 a.m. Like, and that was basically the evening stuff was definitely like Sunday through Thursday. And then evenings, I didn't work Friday, Saturday, but I was working Saturday during the day. Right.
Yeah.
So like really I was at the peak, I probably was working close to 100 hours a week. At the peak, I would say,
Ah,
while getting paid
wow.
zero.
Huh. Jeez.
Yeah.
Great.
But
So,
the thing was, is that like I was building like all of these systems that we can talk about, but basically like in the background, like I had taken the lessons. By the way, the two leaders had then exited the business after, and by the way, like they didn't have proper metrics and they didn't have proper like OKRs that they needed to hit or like any of that stuff. They left. Basically, it created a massive culture rift. They had an empire builder like mentality, meaning we're right, everybody else is wrong. That culture unfortunately stayed after them, where frankly those people left because they were like, I can't work under these conditions because I'm not getting what I need from all the other departments, and they left. And my co-founder had to pick up a lot of the slack on the product delivery side, like a lot, because he knew how to do a lot of the work himself. I had to also start doing that as well to a lesser degree than him, but I definitely had to do it. But I was like very busy, like setting out all of these systems, from memory of my previous executive slash consulting slash like corporate life. And I was like, all right, SOPs for everybody, like objectives, metrics, and KPIs for everything, like every department, every like aspect. So I just started like engineering the sophistication that I had seen before into our business at that point. And that's why like the hours got crazy while we were frankly losing money and losing valuation every single month and getting paid zero.
yeah. And so the managers you hired exited. They left behind a bunch of poison, basically, with the team, and then you started to create. So is this when you decided that, okay, I've had enough. I'm going to do something. What was that point like, and what did you do next?
I think that the point that I decided to do something was basically a month or two before those managers exited. And that's why they exited, because I basically sat everybody down on the leadership team, there was only like 5 of us at the time, right? Like department heads and things like that. And I was like, look,
Hmm.
I basically said, I've done a poor job of leading us. All of this is on me. But here's the thing, moving forward, every single department is going to have like targets. We are going to have one or two individual team targets, and we're going to also have group targets like client retention and like key items that can't be done by any one department, because it's the client connection and it's the work and it's whatever. We're going to have a
Yeah.
few targets that are group based, right? And I called out the fact that I see this culture of it's not my fault, or check the box so it's not my fault. And this is stopping now, right? And that's why we're gonna have some team targets. This is like a cultural reset that we need to do. And I need your help to help build out these systems and blah, blah, blah. And I will build out systems from my end and all of these other things. And frankly, 2 weeks later, I got notice from one of them. A week or two later, I got the notice from the other one of them, because like I think that they knew that the jig was up, because they weren't being measured by very much at the
Hmm.
time. And so when I basically did this reset, they basically said, yeah, no, like this is going to get bumpy. And sure enough, like we found like way more poison, like hidden, like in the corners of the room after they left. Like people started copy pasting us like Slack conversations that they had with these managers, and it wasn't good.
Ah.
So it
So
was
they knew.
things like,
So those people knew that they were being led astray. Then, so you did still had some good people
oh,
on your
only
team.
once they started plugging back into us and they noticed the incongruency, right? Meaning
Uh
like
huh.
they were talking to their manager. And by the way, this was another failing of ours. We weren't doing skip level meetings, right? We were just like, okay, now this person is between us and everybody else in these departments. We stopped meeting with them one-to-one cold turkey. Instead of doing a skip level meeting every quarter, which by the way, I live by now, You should do skip level meetings with the people that report to your management or leadership team at least once a quarter, in my opinion, just to see how things are going. But basically, when people plugged back into my founder and I, they were like, wait a second, this doesn't make any sense. And they got really confused, especially our older employees that had been with us for a long time. They were like, wait, you like me? And we're like, of course we like you. You're awesome. It's like, and like, I remember the first conversation, and this employee, she basically said, I thought that you wanted me out of the business. And I'm like, look, if I wanted you out of the business, I don't have to dance around it. I can just remove you. But to answer your question, yeah, I love having you here. And out came the, oh yeah, these guys think that you guys suck and blah, blah. Basically what they had done was, rather than show proper leadership and management, they basically positioned their team like in a vacuum, being like, everybody's against you. The other departments are against you. Even the management are against you. And I'm the only person that can protect you. And weirdly, both of these managers did the exact same thing. Because again, we didn't have the systems and the checks and balances and blah, blah, blah to make sure that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right?
You carried all that in your head, and you didn't give them in the first place, you didn't give them really the tools that they needed.
Absolutely.
So,
Or even like something as simple as like an escalation policy where it's like, hey, if you disagree with your manager twice, like once verbally, once in writing, then you can come up like one level. I didn't have the skip level meetings in place. I didn't have the KPIs and objectives in place. I didn't have a whole bunch of other systems in place that could allow people to like flag to me like their concerns. And this is what came out of it. And frankly, like analysis of like Slack messages thereafter and or like screenshots that people took from their conversations with these managers, where they're like, oh yeah, I brought that concern up to them. They don't care. And it's, we never heard about the thing in the first place. We were like, what? No, we never even heard about this.
yeah.
Fortunately enough for us, we did have like a good core of employees that like didn't buy into it fully. And then when they started talking to us again, they were like, yeah, I thought this smelled fishy. And they kind of never believed it. So they stuck around. But there was a lot of people that left. And so, and again, the revenue dropped along with it. So like all it did was prevent layoffs at the end of the day. It organically got there on its own, which I mean, it could have been way more painful. Like it was already painful. It could have been way more painful. But that was like the
So what
moment.
happened
That's why
next?
like I had already started like putting everything into place. And that's why like the hours got to crazy. At that point, I was working 80 hours on a slow weekend. Right. But basically just getting all of these items back into place. And the major buckets that I kind of divided everything in was like dashboards, people performance systems, and then client retention systems. Right. And obviously like the product stuff. And we just started, like, I started building as these things got traction, other people bought in, and then things went well. But it was bad. It was like really bad.
So you've kind of turned the corner. You figured out what was wrong. You had this poison. You started to get rid of the poison. You started to implement the systems and KPIs and dashboards. What happened then?
Yeah, it wasn't like a first iteration and obviously all worked, but we started getting the momentum back up, and the client complaints very quickly stopped at one point in time. And that's where I was like, okay, like we're okay now. We're back to our old selves. Everything's working well. The main thing and takeaway for me from the whole thing was like, look, I can't just go in my time machine. I can't go back in time and then do all the things that I was doing before. I got to teach everybody how to do this stuff and support them with systems and processes on top of training them. And so I was like, I'm going to train and like systems our way out of this rather than me being like the work checker and the quality assurer and like all of these other things. So I'm not going to repeat that mistake again. And sure enough, we had some very capable people. They drove the churn down. And to give you an idea of how bad our client churn was, at one point, we had one account manager that had client turnover of about 25% cash per month, meaning that the average account on that person was lasting 4 months. Meanwhile, when it was like during the transition and afterwards, when it was all said and done, we went to an average churn rate of below 2.5%, with some people being like even below that and or negative churn, meaning that they were upselling and getting referrals in excess of whatever revenue would drop out of their book of business. And so like a complete night and day reversal. The overall turnover that we had before was actually like 15 to 16%. Now these agencies sit at 2-3% max per month. So like huge departure versus previous. And the transition was really about let's get our client turnover under control, because look, during this whole time, the leads and the closes were just going. They're going at the same rate the whole time, right?
Yeah.
So we started like mission one was like, look, we don't need more sales and marketing. We just need to retain the clients that we're getting and the clients that we have. Like that's mission number one. And I didn't want to like rush it, meaning like at this point, we're still not making money. Me and the other co-founder, we're still not taking a salary home. I'm like, just slow. Like, I just want to lose less money every month at this point. Right. And then we break even and then obviously keep going. And the thing that really happened was that when we gave people access to the numbers, meaning like before, like you said, it was all in my head, we gave people access to the data of the business within reason. Obviously, like they couldn't look at like things like salary data and things like that, but like we show them like, look, this is how the business is doing. This is the productivity dashboard. Here's the client churn dashboard. Here's the client results dashboard. Basically, we created all these dashboards so they could see the performance of the business. Then what we did is that we started assigning key numbers of those to them, either in a one-to-one fashion or in a group fashion. So, hey, this number, you own this number holistically. This number, it's like, this is a shared target. So as we were doing all of this and people started taking ownership, and obviously we had this period of, look, if you're missing the target, it's okay, because it wasn't expected of you before. We haven't given you the tools. We haven't given you the training. This is like a 3 to 6 month transition, more so 6 months, where we're going to slowly ramp into this together, right? We're in this together. And ultimately, if you're missing, it's because like, I didn't train you well enough. I didn't prepare you well enough. It's on me, the leader, to make sure that these things are happening. And so we made that transition. And by the end of it, people really owned their individual and team numbers. And what had happened was that they actually exceeded my wildest dreams, because the targets that I had set at the beginning, like they were just beating these things soundly. And it's because, again, like I wasn't in the day-to-day, and even in the time before, if we were to get in the time machine, they were doing things better than when I was involved in it. Right? Because now they knew that it was on them. They knew that they had the autonomy to do it. They had the accountability to do it, and they had the resources to do it. Right? So not only were they doing it as good, in 80% or more of the cases, they were doing it better than when I was involved. It wasn't even close. And so the clients became happier. The profitability came back slowly but surely, because we just prevented churn and just kept closing the same amount of deals. And like things got really good. I think at our bottom, we were probably losing somewhere between 15 and 20% EBITDA per month. And if you fast forwarded about 9 to 12 months after these fixes were deployed, we were sitting at like north of like in the high 30s. So like, I'm not talking about a small change. Like we went from like negative 20 to like upper 30s in the span of a year.
Yeah. And so what you ended up doing is those same people, now that they had the right architecture, the right systems and dashboards and numbers that they were held accountable to, they were producing better results than you guys were producing in the first place.
100%. And yeah, and versus before it was even bad, like during our growth period where we thought everything was good, this was so much better than that. And to me, like I look at it retrospectively now and I say like, we could have prevented all this problem with all this stuff. But to be very honest, like I'm actually like super grateful that we went through that period, because how I work is like, I get a little bit obsessed about things. And so
really?
in a good way. So when I redrew up how we onboarded clients, for example, like I was like, okay, we're now in the first 100 days, aka like the first 70 business days, we're going to have 60 touch points with the client. And this is what they look like. And here's how I map it out. And like, here's what we're going to say to them, like day 1, day 3, day 5. And I literally did it and then asked clients for feedback about like what items were missing, how they felt about certain items. And like, I just perfected this like onboarding where clients were like, you guys are one of one. I've never seen anything like this. Like, this is so intricate. I even had some clients complain that it was too much. I ignored those guys. And they just said, look, this stuff is optional, but it makes you better. But like 9 out of 10 people were like, this is the greatest thing I've ever, like, I've worked with many agencies. Like, you guys are doing this completely different. And so that level of like obsession I took to like our operating system, like our dashboards, like who owns them? Like, what's the methodology? What's the psychology behind the numbers? Like what to position, like what specific numbers to position as team versus individual. And we went super, super deep on all of those things individually, one at a time, until it created this like system that was, of course, built on like sound, like management and leadership foundations, but we had basically made it our own. And really, like, that's what I credit to being able to get out of the business fully, where like now I can quite literally work in the business about 4 hours a week. And this is in the business. So like I can work on the business as much as I want, but I'm only necessary about 4 hours a week. And frankly, like those hours are review dashboards, whole team accountable to dashboards, and training. That's all I do in the 4 hours is basically like numbers review, which is the minority of those 4 hours. And then the rest of it is all training. I record trainings. I like take people through trainings. Like this is what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then I can work on the business, like new deals, new partnerships, new whatever else have you, but it's not dependent on me in any way, shape, or form. And sure enough, like when all of these changes started happening, like we hired the best salesperson our company had ever had. And like, frankly, it was because during the interview process, the guy was like, you're so dialed in when you're talking about like how you run your company and this and that, whatever. And I only believe in selling clients things that are value to them. Like, I don't want to sell them a service that they're not going to get value from. And in my mind, there's no way that at the level of retention that you have and at the level of like attention to detail that you have for your own business, there's no way that clients are unhappy with this. Because like, I like to put my name on things when I sell it. Like, I need to represent a product or service that actually does what it does and people love it. And it was like the best sales hire we ever had, like highest close rate. People love us before they even sign on the dotted line, right? Like amazing, like consulting style selling rather than being super salesy. Like, again, like I fully attribute being able to hire that manager and others like him after we put all these things in place, because the realization became, as I said before, really good managers and leaders, they're interviewing you through your questions. Like you think that you're interviewing them and you're not. Like that's the reality. You're only interviewing people when you're not interviewing the best. The best are interviewing you. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
Right. And they only follow the strong, right? Like people like those types of leaders, they work for CEOs. They don't work for founders. And there's a big
Right.
difference.
And really what happened, what your transformation was, you were the founder who was the dashboard. You became the architect, and then you stepped out as the CEO finally. And now you're the CEO of this company and more.
Yeah. And it basically gave me the ability to become the cheerleader, right? In the sense of, hey, you got this. You're capable of doing this, finding the right people, right? Holding people accountable at a very high level because they hold themselves more accountable than I could ever hold them accountable for, which means that my role is actually to soften the blow, if anything, because they feel a lot worse than they probably should. So I have to actually like get them up and on their feet again because they feel bad when they miss. And it's just like a totally different, I went from having to push and drag people to just being like their guide in a way where it's just, hey, dust yourself off. It's okay. No, we got this. We'll figure it out together. Right. Versus, hey, why aren't you doing this? We're missing this thing. We've been missing for 3 months and there's no initiatives to fix this. And the only thing you say is it's not my team's fault, right? It's like, it's a very stark contrast versus before. And because of this, was able to start up more agencies with the exact same system. And at this point now, this is why agency acquisitions exist, is because we help people put in the system. Because to be honest, the biggest problem with all of this was not even like losing the money. I remember how I felt. I remember how bad my health was. I remember not being able to, I remember being so exhausted that I couldn't, like, I hit the pillow and I couldn't move, but I also couldn't sleep because my brain was just going a million miles per hour. Like I was like physically exhausted to the maximum while not being able to sleep. So I was like sleeping in some cases 3-4 hours a night at most, right? Like, just bad on top of bad. And honestly, I think that this is what a lot of entrepreneurs hold in. And
True that.
I just don't want other people to feel that way. Honestly, I think, look, if I look at the work that I do, like, selfishly, yes, I get paid to do it, but I also think I'm in a weird way just trying to save my previous self. Right?
Yeah, it seems like you're serving the greater good, because being an entrepreneur is a lonely business, and you do get exhausted, you get burned out, and at some point like you did, you got to turn from the founder and become the CEO, and put into place the architecture that ordinary people can use to produce extraordinary and repeatable results. Is exactly what you did. Hey, Nick, we need to wrap up here. We're going over. I really appreciate your time and your passion. I just think that you've done a brilliant thing with your agencies. How can people get in touch with you and find out more about acquisitions that your company and connect with you?
Yeah, so you can Google me, like Nick Avaria. You can find my LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn is Nick Avaria. So NICK space AVARIA. I'm also on YouTube. So I have a bunch of resources actually on YouTube around like management and how to create like a self-sustaining business that doesn't involve you day to day. And then lastly, but definitely not least, you can go to my website, Agency Acquisitions with an S at the end. So acquisitions.io. And I also have a bunch of free resources there. And please check those out. Especially check out the YouTube if you want to learn more about the self-managing business item. And I do also have a 5-hour training on how to make your business self-managing in my resources section on the website.
Nice. Thanks again. Remember, as we sign off, remember faith and action to go hand in hand. So keep the pedal to the metal. Until next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show, I'm Paul Guy and Nick Avaria. Thank you so much, brother, for coming on the show. And one final reminder, for every operator or founder out there listening, growth doesn't just add opportunity. It reveals whether your business is built to handle the next level. So thank you so much again. We appreciate it. And until next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lead Machine Growth Show with Paul Guyan, where we show you how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream so that you can transform your vision into reality. Remember to visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show.